So, I woke up in my tent in the middle of the night, all alone, soaked in sweat, feverish, and with the feeling that something inside of me was terribly wrong. The day before, I had one of the best days of my life because I had just gotten rid of almost everything I owned to move out into the Swedish forests to live in a tent to write code. That beautiful day, I was sitting in my portable chair, listening to the birds chirping, smelling the trees around me, feeling the warmth from the sun and from the ground, sipping a wonderful cup of coffee. Solar panels beside me, charging my laptop. A deep, magically blue lake down below from where I took my water. My computer in my lap. I was coding. I was free. I was on my path. In my backpack, I had some sliced salami. 3 days old, incubated sliced salami. I ate it. So I woke up with this gut feeling that something was not right. And that was my guts trying to escape me in every direction possible. I had never been so sick in my life before. My body was taking turns in vomiting and passing out over and over again. The first time I passed out was from an upright position. I was lucky enough not to hit a rock falling headlong to the ground or have a stick poke my eye out. But I got smarter fast because the next time this feeling came over me, I positioned myself in a way so that I can safely fall unconscious to the ground without risking hurting myself. And in one way, this was a very fascinating experience because when regaining consciousness again after passing out, it was like different parts of the brain were starting up at different speed. First there was sound, like the sound you would imagine if someone was dragging you out of a black hole, something like whoosh. Then came sight, but I could not understand what I was looking at until memory kicked in. And then I recognized that, oh, that is a stone. Okay. And this is the ground, right? And this thing around me is the forest. Oh, how nice, I'm in the forest. I must be dreaming. And then the memory came to me while I was lying there on the ground in the forest, and it did not feel like a dream anymore, more like a nightmare. And this whole cycle repeated in an hour or so. Needless to say, I was a bit worried about my newly found state. So I managed to more or less crawl up to a spot where I knew I had connection on my phone to send away a text message. So how did I, a computer programmer, end up there on the ground in the forest among the sticks and the ants? Ever had that feeling in life that you are lost, confused, not really knowing how to make the best out of your life, feeling that what you are doing is not bringing you meaning? I had come to such a point in my life where I felt lost, where I could not identify with the person living my life. And if you cannot identify with the person living your life, something is wrong. And that hurt me. That made me lose faith in myself. And I hate to admit it, but I was losing my self-esteem. And that was not me. And I'll tell you a secret. I was brittle, fragile. And when you are brittle and something is wrong, it hurts. And it hurts a lot. It hurts so much that you have to change it. When you are strong and brave, you make changes because you want to. When you are brittle, you make changes because the world, as it turns, hurts. Have you ever experienced a child that just cries its heart out for no obvious reason? Like it's terrified of being put into this big unknown. If you look into that child's eyes, you might see brittleness awaiting to be channelized. The brave ones take care of the brittle ones. You must. The Brave and the Brittle. Season premiere. That sounds like a pretty good soap opera, doesn't it? Episode 1. Oh, my queen, I have been crying for days now. Please send your knights to end this injustice. Etc., etc., etc. Episode 2. I will lock myself up in the tower until you marry me, and I will cry. Yeah, I think you got it. I did not understand it back then, but getting that feeling of being lost was a good thing. It was my lantern in the dark. It meant that I had a vague idea of where I wanted to be, that a goal had slowly started to form inside of me, but the fog had yet to clear for me to see the paths leading towards that goal. Being lost is a natural step before getting on your path. It's like being confused. The confusion could be the necessary level before clarity. The goal that had started to form inside of me was simply the knowledge that I should really be working on this particular idea that I had and not on my daytime job. But how would I ever find time to do that? If you are a person that keeps hammering away on a job you don't really enjoy because of loyalty or other people depending upon you, you are strong, and I admire you. But for me, that became an impossible facade to keep up. And one afternoon, in the process of helping a friend move, transporting furniture and box after box of belongings from their old place to their new place, it struck me. All these things, for what? It is all the junk that I call my home that is holding me back. What if I just gave all of that up? Then I would not need an apartment anymore to house all my belongings because I wouldn't have any belongings. Without an apartment, I could afford to quit my job. But where would I live? Well, I really like the forest. So I'll just wait for spring and I'll move out there. I'll get rid of everything I own, move out into the forest, the Swedish forests, live in a tent, write code, and with close to zero money, start a company. And with solar panels to charge my laptop with. Oh, what a wonderful and stupid idea. So refreshing, so liberating, I just had to do it. The company was to become Blocky, and the vision was to democratize coding, enabling non-coders to create software together. So even when I was lying there on the ground among the sticks and the ants, etc., I was in the right place. I was on my path, literally on my path. I had never been so sick and lonely in my life before, but it did not hurt in the wrong way. There was no such pain. I wouldn't say I was happy in that moment, but I would say I was alive, balancing on the edge of that black hole. I got to grips with the forest life, and I did learn from my mistakes. The weeks and the months were rolling on, and seasons were changing. My life got even leaner. I got rid of more stuff I felt I did not need. I started eating less, more simple food. At times, I felt dizzy from malnutrition. Every time I ate, I was more hungry after I finished than when I started. I lost about 11 kilos, 24 pounds, something like that. And I met this peculiar fellow one day who had lived in the forest for several years. When I stumbled upon him, he was sitting by a lake, drying up from a swim. He looked at me as though he was expecting me. I mean, it could just have been a strange dream. Was I still in that black hole, under the influence of malnutrition? If it wasn't for my journal notes and the gift he left me. Strange thing was that it was like meeting a future version of myself. He too had moved out into the forest at the same age, and we had a similar background as each other. He was also a coder. I knew instinctively that there were some types of questions I was not allowed to ask him, like who he was, where he was from, and his name. I simply referred to him as the bony one. He was kind of skinny. We talked about the forest life, how to keep warm, how to make the best fire, how to fish. He told me why you should always eat the brain of the fish, for the fat. I told him about Blocky and my quest for democratizing coding. And as the night grew darker around us, the subjects went from practical issues to more philosophical ones. I think we came into existentialism, because suddenly he went quiet and just stared out into the dark, like he had seen something I could not. I glanced over to him and saw the light of the fire screw the features of his face like in an ever-changing sea. He then whispered, "Imagine a network of computers, which you foster with your values and your thoughts, like the Internet of Things, but where you become a thing." Then he said, "Imagine such an artificial intelligence, where the factor driving the evolution of the intelligence is our needs." Well, that sounds amazing, I told him. And then he said to me, "Yeah, maybe you should build it." And I said, "Well, apart from being totally impossible, I really do not have time. I have to build Blocky." And he said, "Yeah, it was Blocky I was talking about." So I said, no, you misunderstood something here. Blocky is small blocks that contain code, which you stack together to create more complex blocks, which you then stack together to create even more complex blocks in a recursion until you reach the level of complexity that your software requires. But the leap from there to artificial intelligence is just huge. It's impossible. No one can do that. And then he said, "Well, it always starts somewhere. It is always many small steps to increase the logical depth of anything. And if you can find the key to exponential evolution within the system, it can come fast." I was perplexed. The key to exponential evolution. Who was this sparsely bearded guy living in the forest? Then he went on talking about how everything in nature is built out of fractals. To tell you the truth, I got a bit obsessed about finding this key he was talking about. It took about a year, but sitting for 4 months, more or less alone in the Costa Rican jungle, did something to me. I think I found it. We call it crowdsourced evolution, driven by user need, or simply become a thing. But that's another story. Then I had to look this thing up he mentioned about logical depth. Very briefly, that is that you have to get out there and get experiences, get dented. It's not about how many experiences you have memorized. It's about how many experiences you have forgotten. Distilled experience becomes wisdom. Do you remember in the movie Lord of the Rings, where Gandalf the Grey becomes a white wizard? He had forgotten he was Gandalf the Grey until they reminded him. Then he remembered, yes, Gandalf the Grey, that was my name. And it was forgetting those experiences he had as Gandalf the Grey, he could level up to become Gandalf the White. The Brittle and the Brave, season finale, featuring Gandalf the White. You shall not pass! Oh, I want to pass or I will cry. Okay, pass. Well, anyway. A lot of people told me that moving out into the forest was a stupid idea. They were all right. But if you follow a stupid idea, you're going to go where very few people have ever been. That's the power of stupid idea. I gave the bony one my business card. But I know in my heart that even though we really liked each other, he threw it into the fire a few days later because it was burning in his pocket and he could have no strings attached anywhere. I get that. He always has to forget. The forest humbled me and fostered me and also gifted me with this new and almost impossible goal. When I decided to move out there, my decision was to let go of my life at the time. But I didn't know that that wasn't my life. That was my done life. Life I already lived. And I was very dramatic about it, quitting my apartment and my job. And that is not the best route for everybody. But I do believe that all of us harbor pieces of done life inside of us, ripe to be forgotten, to make room for change, to keep you on level with the person you identify with. That is the most important thing. A friend of mine who also happens to be a nurse had promised to be my backup, stood by his word, and found his way out to me later that evening when I was lying there sick on the ground. I had summoned the last pieces of myself and managed to put my orange towel up in a tree for him to find me. I'm just lying there in the moss, not caring about the ants and the spiders walking over me, just waiting, not moving. And I can still see it in front of me when he appeared there over the hill. It was not the soup, nor the water. It was the company of another human being that was the absolute strongest feeling in that moment. He was kind, pretending not to notice the tears I was trying to hide. That was day 4. Did I consider moving back to civilization? No, not at all. And not because I was strong in any way. I wasn't. Just because the idea would have been so totally alien to me. It would have been like walking backwards on my path. Not to say I never visited civilization on the 5 months journey through the forest. I did. My path was crooked. It still is, as they are, but you walk it forward. And you know what? Today, I can surely identify with the person living my life. And I do like to share it with a lot of people. So could all of us, brittle or brave. The bony one is still out there, wandering the forests and beaches of the world, expecting someone like you. Thank you.